This silence you've been feeling wasn't absence. It was alignment. You thought God had forgotten you. But what if the stillness was sacred? What if the delay wasn't denial, but design? Was it rejection, or was it redirection? Was it punishment, or preparation? You've been praying for a breakthrough, aching for movement, desperate to feel the winds shift. But what if the shift already began, and you just didn't recognize the signs? Stay with me, because by the end of this message, what once felt like divine neglect will be revealed as prophetic strategy. What you thought was falling apart was actually falling into place. Here, in the sanctuary of Chosen One's prophecy, we don't just speak to your surface. We speak to the scroll in your spirit, the one you've carried since birth but couldn't read until now. Remember Joseph? Before the palace, there was a pit. Before he wore the ring, he wore rejection. Genesis 50:20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done." So, what if your enemies were never in control? What if your heartbreak, your delay, your spiritual drought were all signs that your breakthrough was near? Don't look away, don't scroll past, because the signs you've been missing may explain everything. Stay, because the next 12 signs may be the reason your entire life has felt like divine tension waiting to break. When God starts the separation, before breakthrough comes birth, and before birth there is always a tearing. When God is preparing you for a sacred elevation, He begins not by adding, but by subtracting. He removes what cannot enter your next season. Habits that once comforted you begin to disgust you. Relationships that once felt aligned now feel foreign. The atmosphere around you tightens, as if heaven itself is pruning your soul for flight. This is divine separation, not punishment, not loss, but the signature of God removing what can't go where you're going. Remember Abraham. Before he could step into covenant, he had to leave his father's house. Before Joseph entered Pharaoh's courts, he had to lose the coat his father gave him. God strips you not to shame you, but to sanctify you. You weren't abandoned. You were being separated for sacred use. And when the people start leaving, when the cravings begin to die, when the comfortable feels contaminated, your breakthrough is near. But are you willing to let go of what God has already left? The silence that speaks. When the heavens grow quiet, it is not because God is absent. It is because God is working. Silence is not a void. It is a veil. Chosen ones often experience prolonged seasons where God feels distant. Prayer feels hollow, and clarity feels like fog. But this is not divine neglect. It is divine disguise. When God goes silent, He is not ignoring you. He is building something behind the scenes that your senses aren't ready to perceive. Moses spent 40 years in Midian with no divine conversation. Then, suddenly, a burning bush, a commission, a nation waiting. The silence wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The pain is loud, but heaven's whispers are hidden in stillness. What if what you call delay is really destiny growing in secret? The fire that forms you before a sword can defend. It must survive the forge. The chosen are not marked by ease, but by fire, rejection, loss, betrayal, back-to-back storms that seem unfair. Until you realize they were fire drills for your authority, Job lost everything. Not because he was cursed, but because he was qualified. The fire did not destroy him, it revealed him. Chosen ones walk through the furnace so their faith can carry weight. Not popularity weight, glory weight, authority forged in affliction. So if the fire has found you, rejoice. The forge has opened. The blade is being shaped. And what if your greatest pain was actually heaven sharpening your edge? The battle for discernment. Hell will never tempt the ordinary with counterfeit glory. Only the chosen are offered false thrones. When your breakthrough is near, the enemy sends decoys. Opportunities that look like blessings but smell like compromise. Relationships that feel exciting but drain your soul. Doors that open wide but lead to cages. Eve didn't fall because she didn't know God's voice. She fell because she stopped discerning the enemy's tone. This is the war before your breakthrough, not with swords, but with decisions. Your discernment becomes your defense. You weren't being tested randomly. You were being trained to choose what looks empty now but holds glory later. If this resonates, comment 444 as a prophetic sign you are still listening and receiving. Because what's coming next may explain why the war intensified right before your miracle. When your spirit cries for more. There is a moment when your soul begins to groan for something beyond routine. Prayer becomes oxygen. Silence becomes instruction. Your own voice feels too shallow for the depth you're sensing. That is not emotional restlessness. That is spiritual expansion. Like Hannah, who wept with no words. Like Daniel, who fasted when the 70 years were fulfilled. Your spirit knows what your mind cannot name, that the hour of release has come. The Holy Spirit begins to stir in you a divine discomfort. You lose taste for shallow conversations. You are pulled to the secret place like a magnet. You weren't becoming antisocial. You were becoming anointed. And when your appetite shifts, heaven is announcing something. Your assignment is being revealed. Suddenly, the vision becomes clearer, not all at once, but in flashes, dreams, ideas, a stirring in your bones to build something that doesn't exist yet, to speak what others won't say, to carry what others dropped. This is not imagination. This is instruction. Esther didn't stumble into the palace. She was positioned for it. And when the time came, the instruction was clear. If you remain silent, deliverance will arise from elsewhere, but you and your father's house will perish. This is the weight of being chosen. Your assignment is not optional, it's eternal. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to deliver something heaven wrote into your DNA. But are you willing to say yes before you know where it leads? The resistance that reveals you. Opposition does not always come from demons. Sometimes it comes from family. When you start to rise, those closest to you may not understand the shift. They will call it pride, over spirituality, isolation. But in truth, they're sensing what they cannot name, that heaven has singled you out. David's own brother mocked him before Goliath fell. Jesus' neighbors dismissed him as just the carpenter's son. Resistance is often a mirror. It reflects what you carry and reveals who cannot go with you. You weren't being attacked for your personality. You were being resisted for your mantle. But will you lower your fire just to make others comfortable in your presence? Confronting the Darkness. Let's speak plainly. Hell targeted you early for a reason. Before you knew who you were, the enemy knew. The warfare wasn't random. The attacks weren't casual. They were calculated. Because chosen ones don't just carry light, they carry disruption. When you rise, systems break. When you speak, chains loosen. So hell doesn't wait. It attacks in childhood. It wounds through betrayal. It whispers through trauma. But listen, the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still seeking, is proof. You weren't destroyed because you are dangerous. You are the answer to a bondage that's been cycling through generations. And the enemy knows. If you ever step fully into who you are, it's over. So, what are you still waiting for? The echo that must go forth. This breakthrough isn't just for your comfort, it's for your calling. When Lazarus came out of the tomb, Jesus said, "Loose him and let him go." But that wasn't the end. Lazarus became the proof. The walking echo of resurrection power. So will you be. Your pain wasn't in vain. Your process wasn't wasted. Your waiting wasn't a delay. It was a divine alignment with the scroll you were born to carry. There are lives waiting on the other side of your obedience. Your voice will ripple across timelines. Your surrender will echo into eternity. The oil wasn't poured on you just to shine. It was poured to send. So the question is no longer, when will my breakthrough come? The real question is, will you answer when it does? You thought you were waiting on the breakthrough, but the breakthrough was waiting on you. It wasn't about open doors, it was about open eyes. The signs weren't delayed, they were disguised, hidden in the pruning, whispered in the silence, burning in the fire you thought would consume you, but you survived. Not just to testify, but to release. You are not the same one who entered the trial. You've been separated, refined, awakened. Heaven didn't just rescue you, it reintroduced you. You are not just a believer, you are a carrier, a builder, a breaker of cycles and a birther of movements. You have been marked, you have been forged, and now you are being sent. If this word confirmed what your spirit already knew, comment 777 below as your prophetic agreement. Share the moment that struck you deepest. Let your testimony become someone else's confirmation. And if your spirit is stirring, stay connected here at Chosen One's Prophecy. Because what God is igniting in you is part of a global echo that's only just beginning. You are not alone. You are the next echo.